In this video, I'm going to take a look at the Dwarven units, partially announced in the video just released by the Creative Assembly, talking about the Dwarven Axe and Hammer units.
Sega.
The dwarfs are a proud race who spend the majority of their lives under the mountains in glorious strongholds. Great miners and smiths, their weapons are among the most ornate and deadly in the old world.
So, in terms of deadliness, and that can be argued, the dwarves prefer to use hammers and axes. They use both single-handed and double-handed versions of those weapons. The weapons themselves, the single-handed hammers and axes, they are no different from other hand weapons like swords in how they are used, but the way the dwarves use them is a bit special, because the dwarves have something called army-wide special rules, and those are rules that apply to every dwarf in your army. One of them being that the dwarves are resolute, and if the dwarves can get the charge off, they're going to get +1 strength on the charge. Now, if you're wielding a double-handed weapon, giving you +3 strength, I realize these numbers might not make the most sense to those of you who have no experience with Warhammer, but if we're going to try to translate this into Warhammer stats, into Total War stats, let's say that you have a standard basic militia unit has a weapon damage of 30. Now, if you gave that militia unit a double-handed axe, he would have a weapon damage of 50. And if you gave him the relentless trait, now he's got a weapon damage of 60. So it's essentially doubling the weapon damage. Not only that, every point of strength above 4 is going to reduce the armor of the target. So it's going to get -3 armor piercing when you get up to the levels of strength of 6. That means that these double-handed hammers and double-handed axes on the charge can wreck monstrous units, can wreck a high number of high armor, high toughness enemy units. Now, the trade-off, of course, is that if you wield a double-handed weapon, you're going to be more vulnerable to shooting, and you're going to be less able to defend yourself in combat.
Although short, they are powerfully built, strong and accomplished fighters, preferring sharp-edged axes and pulverizing hammers over the crude stabbing weapons of inferior races. Our artists and animators have really enjoyed evoking that feeling of bundled strength, like a coiled spring unleashed. In battle, a unit of dwarf warriors is a steadfast unit, superior against basic enemy infantry, but equally capable of bringing down more monstrous foes as well.
So the superior to infantry part, the dwarves have access to very good armor. They are slower than most other comparable infantry units. However, they have some of their other race traits will be the shield wall. So they will get a +1 bonus to parry when charged initially. And that's one of the things that makes dwarves superior, is that they get bonuses both to charging and when defending. And that is to somewhat mitigate the inherent vulnerabilities in having low mobility and usually coming up against factions with superior mobility, armies with superior mobility, and of course lacking cavalry. So just how that's going to play out, don't know, but it would be cool to see the dwarves have, say, shield wall abilities that other factions don't have.
Dwarfs are far from cumbersome brutes. They are mighty warriors whose swings can gouge deep and crush skulls in a
Now, dwarves are cumbersome. They are slow, they are cumbersome. They are... I can't agree with that. They're not cumbersome. That's exactly what they are. Slow, heavily armored, and cumbersome, but able to dish out a lot of damage, sure.
deadly arc.
And you'll see on some of these weapons there are sort of standard ornaments on them, but some dwarven weapons can have runes that make them more powerful, that increases attacks, increases armor penetration, increases damage, and I really hope that's going to be part of the upgrade system, where dwarven units can have magical banners, as can other units, magical banners, and the ability to upgrade weapons to make them specifically able to combat specific foes. And just to what we're looking at here now, this guy with the axe and the axe and the shield looks to me like he's a long beard of some sort by the length of his beard and the ornate armor he's wearing. There are several types of dwarven units wielding hammers and two-handed hammers, single-handed hammers, and single-handed axes. Now, we have the standard dwarven warriors. Special thing about them, they can both use the axe and shield, or they can use a two-handed weapon, a great weapon, to make them more effective at killing, but that comes with the trade-off. They're going to be less resilient to missile fire. And then we have the long beards. They are better than the warriors. They have better weapon skill, they'll hit more often, and they have a higher strength value. So they're going to be armor piercing even though they just have a standard axe. They're going to be fearsome with a strength of 7 when charging in with two-handed weapons. A strength of 7 is comparable to the strength value of some of the biggest and baddest monsters in the game. And when you have dozens of dwarves with that strength value charging in, things are going to die. Then we have the hammerers using the hammer. And the cool thing about hammers, well, they wield double-handed war hammers that give them an increase in strength. But they have very low armor. They will die to missiles, they will die to charges. A special thing about hammers is that I don't know if this is going to be in the Call of Warhammer, or Call of Warhammer, that's the mod, in the Total War Warhammer game, the ability to challenge a single enemy champion or challenge a single enemy lord. If that's the case, then, and those models are locked in combat for some time, every single hammerer is able to take up a challenge against an enemy lord or hero. And that enables the hammerers to stay in combat for a long time, because enemy lords and heroes are not going to be able to kill off 5, 6, 7 hammers in a single round of combat. They are going to cause overkill by stomping that single hammerer into the ground and causing a morale shock to the hammer unit. However, the hammerers and basically every dwarf unit is extremely resilient to psychological effects. So you will find that the hammerers are able to hold in combat for a long time. And then we have the Iron Breakers. Iron Breakers are sort of the essential anvil unit. Hammerers and warriors with great weapons could be seen as the hammers of the dwarven army. No pun intended. And the Iron Breakers, wearing very good armor, have a 5+ constant save when they have the shield wall and the Gromril armor. They are extremely tanky units, high toughness, great armor, extra defense when charged. These are the units that are going to go up against the best the enemy has to offer. They might not kill that much, they're going to kill something, but they're going to be able to hold that. They're going to be able to hold that unit for a long time. And that's one of the cool things about the dwarves, is that you have very few units that are not able to get into combat with the enemy and hold the enemy for extended periods of time, even though they could lose. They're not just going to rout off the field, and the reason this works is, I mean, having just all heavy infantry seems to be maybe a bit boring, a bit one-dimensional. And sure, the dwarves are not boring, but they are a bit one-dimensional in that they have rock-solid formations of heavy infantry. In addition to this, they have some of the most deadly war machines in the game. They have some of the best artillery, they have gyrocopters. If an enemy decides to not engage the dwarves, they might very well find themselves shot to pieces by the dwarven artillery and the dwarven skirmishing, which is extremely powerful. But then again, if they start to engage the dwarves and the dwarves are able to charge, or the dwarves get charged with their with their bonuses both when charging and getting charged, you find yourself in a very interesting conundrum against the dwarves, and I really hope this carries over into Total War Warhammer. Just to finish things off, I think the animations for the dwarves, a bit over the top, jumping dwarves with heavy armor and stuff. A bit too over the top for my liking, but it does look good, it does look exciting, and I am really looking forward to getting my hands on Total War Warhammer and seeing how things work. Strength and honor.